Underwriting deals is such a major pain point for people. Most don't want to do it, and the people that are good at it are few and far between. That is why after 6 years of being in the industry and buying over 1,200 apartments, using my best-selling multifamily deal analyzer, I created Real Estate Lab, a full suite acquisition software for multifamily investors. We have built a product that helps investors automate their acquisitions and close more deals, all in a cloud-based platform. You can go to realestatelab.com and sign up today using the promo code TAG2 for 10% off your first 12 months. This is David Tupin. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to The Apartment Gurus, where twice a week, host Tate Siemer brings you deep dive interviews with the wisest gurus in the apartment investing industry. These experts are sure to create game-changing value and inspiration designed to catapult your business to the next level. Be sure to reach out to Tate at www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. And now, here is Tate Siemer and the Apartment Gurus.
Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of The Apartment Gurus. And I am coming to you solo today from my family's cottage on Lake Michigan, which is about 1,700 miles from where I live in Salt Lake City. And I've been coming here my whole life, and we're lucky enough to have this cottage in the family, and I'm in a house full of dogs and people right now. So, and I'm really glad to be here, really excited to do this episode. And we've got a great entrepreneur and investor and coach on the show. His name's Tony Castronovo. And I'm really excited to jump in and talk about kind of all of the above, Tony. So welcome to the show.
All right. Thank you very much, Tate.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking time out on your family trip, your vacation.
Oh, yeah. It's my pleasure. You know, it's, as you know, I'm sure you can kind of relate with, this. You kind of, when you're an entrepreneur in general, but when you're kind of captain of the ship of what you're doing, whether you're a solopreneur or whether you have a team like I do and you're the boss, like, you never stop working. It's, it's kind of, it needs to become almost like a way of life for you. And not that I don't check out, and sometimes I'll check out for a week or two at a time, but for the most part, I take my computer with me and my microphone and my camera, and I'm always ready to record something. But I'm really glad to have you, Tony. And so for listeners, Tony Castronovo, founder and manager partner of Novo Multifamily Group. And he's a seasoned multifamily real estate investor with experience in acquisition, due diligence, syndication, capital raising, construction, and asset management, as well as just overall asset strategy implementation. And that list right there is really, if you're a general partner and an operator, you need to be fluent in all of those above. He's currently invested in approximately 800 units, including a combination of GP, LP, co-GP, and independent ownership. Tony complements his background with a 25-year management consulting career, advising clients on project portfolio, investment management. And he holds higher education degrees in engineering and construction management. He's an 18-year veteran of the Houston Marathon and has run 25 marathons in total. That's amazing. Wow. When was the last time you ran in a marathon, Tony?
Just this past January.
Okay. Wow. And he and his wife, June, have 4 children, ages 20 to 23. So are you guys empty nesters at this point?
Kind of, sort of. Yeah. I mean, we've kind of had a split family, so it seems like kids are coming and going all the time. Yeah.
Gotcha. Before we jump in, what do you like to do for fun, Tony? Besides run long distance.
Besides run, and you got the dog in the background. We've always been dog people, and I have a dog. Her name is Willow. Aww. She will not let me have a day that goes by without a hike, a walk, a run. She loves to get outside. And I'm looking at your background, and I think, you and I talked a little bit before this. That was something that we recently did, was find a place in the mountains so that we can have another place to go, besides Houston, Texas, where we're from.
Yep.
And just enjoy all that, the outdoors. And so we actually have a new place. It's a short-term rental for now in Park City, Utah, which I know you're quite familiar with.
Yeah.
We're really excited about that.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit offline. Like, I don't think you could get a better place for a short-term rental, nightly rental than Park City, Utah. It's so dynamic. There's so much money up there, and there's so much money that comes into Park City to ski, to go to Sundance, to come in the summer and cool off, mountain bike, hike. It's an awesome place. And I'm in Salt Lake, which is about a half hour from Park City. So I end up there a lot for hiking and mountain biking. So congratulations on that. It's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So Tony,
awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So, before we kind of jump into some meat and potatoes stuff, share, if you don't mind, just kind of sharing a little bit more color on your background and your story and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Of course. I'll fast forward to the story where it starts in real estate. And that was 2014, where I had my first single family home, turned it into a rental. Like a lot of people, I started listening to all the Bigger Pockets podcasts and trying to figure out how do I get my first property. And it seemed like it took forever to get that first one. As Michael Blanc likes to say, the law of the first deal. After I got the first one, the second one came pretty quickly. And I was able to kind of fast forward that whole process. And within just really a couple of years, I was able to build a portfolio, just a small portfolio, like 8 single family homes. Mm-hmm. I had a 9th one. We flipped that one, but it basically gave me an introduction into real estate, buy and hold real estate, being a landlord, property management, all of that. And thankfully, I learned pretty quickly that to scale that kind of business would require a significant amount of effort. And really something I just didn't see doing one unit at a time.
Yeah.
So that's when I just sort of ripped the Band-Aid off in 2018 and decided to go full-time multifamily. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about syndication at the time. The only way that I knew how to buy multifamily was how I bought single family. Mm-hmm. And that was just open my checkbook, buy the biggest property I could afford.
Yep.
And that happened to be a 20 unit. While I was going through that reposition of that property, I learned a lot more about syndication and how I could think bigger. And so even though I went from 8 to 20 and I was thinking, wow, I just more than doubled my portfolio, I quickly realized that's nowhere near where I want to be. And so I then bought a 60 unit. That was my first syndication.
Nice.
And, just kept going. And, here I'm invested in around 800 units at this point.
That's awesome. There's some good stuff in there. So, did you find the law of the first deal to be true for you? Did I know? I'm guessing that it probably on the front end that it was true, that it's just a hard thing to get done, like probably the hardest deal you'll ever do. But did you find that things got easier after that?
Yeah, I mean, back in the single family days, it literally took 4 months of looking for that first property. I put in over 22 offers, I believe. Mm. And we had looked at over 75 properties before I got that first one. Mm-hmm. And, it's funny that we were looking over here and then my wife said, no, look over here. And boom, like the next day we found something in the perfect area and couldn't have asked for a better property. Just had to kind of shift my perspective a little bit. Mm-hmm. And yeah, then the next one came pretty quickly thereafter.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about those first deals. Were they in your local market?
Yes. So I had a requirement or set of requirements where I wanted all my properties to be within a 30-minute drive. Because I was self-managing. I was my own general contractor for a while.
Okay.
That changed over time, but I knew I was going to be pretty involved in it. So they had to be pretty close.
Okay. And are you you're not still self-managing, are you?
No. When I went multifamily, that's when I also stopped self-managing. Yeah, I learned enough over 4 years.
Yeah, that's super smart. Yeah, like, for listeners, if you're going to be in the larger scale commercial multifamily space, you're not going to be self-managing. It's really not an option, to be honest with you. And people that try it, just aren't very good at it typically. And it's a 3.5 to 4% line item budget, or line item in your budget, and you need to be able to absorb that. And the reason is because, number one, you're not nearly as good at managing property as you might think you are, and hiring a pro with a portfolio, they're going to do a way better job than you. And number two, like, you should not have the time to be a toilet and tenant property manager. You just shouldn't. You need to be leveraging the expertise and hard work of somebody else. Managing property is hard work. And the activity set has nothing to do with what you're doing as an investor, as far as finding deals and finding dollars, which is what this game is all about. So that's super smart, Tony, that you went that direction. And, it's interesting. So many of us started in the single family world and got to that point that you did, where you realize that it just, like, you were kind of at a wall. Like, you can't go any bigger than where you are, because it's just tough as the dickens to scale. And I do know of people that do 200 flips a year, or wholesale 250 houses a year, and God bless them. Like, the amount of work and the amount of marketing, like, some of them have $25,000 a month marketing budgets to be finding properties. And, the automation is impressive, and I'm very impressed by what they do. But I think most of us get into this multifamily space because it is so much more scalable. Instead of buying 80, 100 single family houses and closing on 100 transactions and doing 100 sets of due diligence and getting 100 loans, you're literally doing that one time with a 100 unit community. And that is way, way more efficient. And it's, it's something that can be scaled, and so many people have, and Tony has, I have, and Tony and I are pretty similar spaces in our career. We have a similar amount of units under management, and and we've been in the multifamily space about the same time. So it's good to be kind of bouncing ideas off each other here, Tony. And I'm eager to get into a number of different things with you. So.
And if you don't mind, maybe I'll just unpack for a moment a little bit about what you said there. I think when we say we don't want to be self-managing, we don't want to be the people who are dealing with the tenants, toilets, and trash sort of thing, right? And we want to be able to hire somebody to help us operate the property. Now, the exception, though, is if we truly want to establish our own property management business, which then will be hired to operate the property.
Absolutely.
We say vertically integrated, right? That's one company to add to your ability to integrate your multifamily business.
Totally.
And I've seen people be super successful with it.
Yep.
For me, it's not currently in my plan because it's a little geographically limiting.
Yep.
And I right now like to be able to do deals in other cities and states nearby. And that just would be very difficult to scale at this point.
Yeah. And the reason why people do go vertical with property management is, number one, they're almost always at, 1,000 units, 1,500 units. They have enough communities that they can make it worth their while. And the true reason why they do it, it's not to make money. That, again, 3.5%, 4% line item is, you're not going to get rich on that. But the reason that they do it is because it's quality control. And the reality of the business is, when you hire third-party management, you're at their mercy. Like, they're hopefully good, but, they very well may not be. And you do the best due diligence you can on them and vet them as well as you can. But we've had a couple nightmares, quite frankly, with our property managers, and had to fire a couple, and that's not fun. And if we had vertically integrated and started a really great company that we control, that may not, probably wouldn't have happened. So, and we may do that down the road. I don't think we're at the scale yet for that. And to your point, Tony, like when you do that, it's still automated because you're not doing, you're not in operations for that company. You're maybe overseeing that company, and you have really good people hired to do all the hard work. So
that's right.
Yeah. Are you thinking of doing that at some point?
I'm not going to rule it out. It doesn't really get me excited other than, like you said, more the control, the quality, that sort of thing. I got a little taste of it on a property where we had a lot of struggles like you just described, and we kind of churned through a few different property management companies over the whole period. And finally, at one point, we said, you know what, let's just take this, quote unquote, in-house. Yeah. In-house meant that we're going to hire a dedicated property manager and then fold her into my partner's vertically integrated company and get that regional leadership and processes and standards and so forth. And that worked pretty well. But that was not something I could repeat on the next property because it was his company. So got a little taste of it though.
So how have things gone with your third party managers?
It's good and bad. It just depends, who you're using and which property, which market, that sort of thing. Yeah. And even the timing, right? Like some of us that kind of had properties that we were trying to reposition in the midst of COVID. Wow, that was challenging for everybody. And some of those were just not great outcomes, but you learn and you adapt and make it better on the next one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And with property management, there's so many moving parts, and, you've got staffing and you've got, tenants, and those are obviously the people involved. And that's where things really shift and change, but it's where the rubber meets the road. In your business plan implementation, you're either successful, you're not successful at that level. And I think some people, that's why they go vertical with it, is because they don't want to expose themselves to the risk of a third party manager not handling things the way they need to. So, it's not necessarily a black or white thing. And, we've got now a couple of wonderful third party managers that do the job way better than we could. And, are seasoned and have been doing it for decades and understand the nuances of the job and also understand the nuances of our tenant bases and know how to deal with them. So it gives us the freedom and the ability to go out and do the things to get more deals, find dollars, find investors, do our broker relations thing, do the podcast, do, all the stuff that we do well and have control over. So,
yeah. And I think you're hitting on something though, Tate, is that for some people, all of what you described that you outsource to a property management company is what they enjoy doing and what excites them about this business.
Right.
Maybe for you and I, that's not terribly exciting. We would rather be finding deals, working with investors, maybe attracting capital, but if you love the operations, go for it. But I think the interesting thing about multifamily is, you always hear the cliche, it's a team sport.
Right.
It truly is. You're not going to get very far without partners. And the nice thing about partners is you can find somebody to complement the areas that either you don't do well or you don't care to do.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, everything that you need to be doing this business, deals, dollars, management is in relationships with other people. And, this entire business happens in the context of relationships. It's a relational business, and you want to be playing the long game with your relationships. And, single family, you find a seller, you get the deal done, boom, on to the next one. You don't likely ever deal with that person again. And I want to get into acquisitions a little bit with you, but with this game, like if you do a deal with a broker, you absolutely 100% want to be working with them again. And that's how you leverage. That's how you do what you need to do. So, cool. So were your first deals in Houston then? Your first multifam deals?
So my first 2 multifamily deals were in a city called College Station, Texas, which is where Texas A&M University is, for those that know the university. It's probably an hour and 15 minutes from the location where I'm based at. So it was close enough to get to when I needed to be there, but yet maybe a little too far away to tempt me to try to self-manage.
Yeah, that's well, that's a good thing. Yeah, for sure. And then did you find them through a broker?
I think really every deal of mine has been through a broker. Yeah. Some off market, but still through a broker.
Yeah. And that's a big takeaway here, guys. Like, for listeners, again, the same thing with us. We tried the direct to seller approach to find properties and talk directly to the sellers. I hired somebody and she was with us for a year playing that game, and probably way too long, quite frankly, because we didn't close a single deal from those efforts. And it's hard work. I think there's an opportunity for people that might be interested in playing the smaller scale multifamily stuff, like your 12 to 50, 60 units. I think there is an opportunity there, because those are typically more mom and pop type owners that may be in distressed situations and maybe undercapitalized and that sort of thing. But man, once you get over 100 units, those investors that own those are savvy, they're experienced usually, and they have brokers calling them all the time to see if they want to sell their property. So they've got all these broker contacts. Why in the world would they enter into an agreement to sell to you who they don't know, that just happen to call them, when they can go list with the broker, expose the property to the entire market, and do a call for offers and create competition? So you want to, in my opinion, and I think it's well informed, you want to get really good at your broker relations game. And we're 100% in on brokers. And that's all we ever spend any time, effort, energy, money on is our broker relations and broker relationships. And we're implementing some stuff to even get better at broker relationships. I'll give a plug to my buddy, Bo Beery, was on the show recently, like in the last 5 episodes, who wrote a book, Multifamily Investors Who Dominate. And it's all about becoming an elite investor in the broker's eyes, right? So you want to create a relationship and a rapport with the broker where they are bringing you deals, on market and off market deals. And to do that, you need to be at the top of their list. And to do that, you need to perform certain things and be a certain way in the business. And you want to be systematic too. Like, you want to stay top of mind with all those brokers. And so, you're, in our case, we're putting a CRM together. It's broker specific, and we're going to have regular touches. And I'll just add this, and then I want your thoughts on this, Tony. Is, to me, nothing replaces being there in person in the market. And as most of you know, we own property in Columbus, Ohio, and Oklahoma City, and by far the most effective activity that we do on a regular basis is go visit the market and go visit our properties and visit our brokers and tour new properties. I can get more in 3 days in Columbus than I can get done in 3 weeks from Salt Lake City, just on a impact level on our business, right? So, what's your experience been with broker relationships? And I mean, do you have brokers you work with over and over again, kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, I know Bo and read the book. He's great.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of great messages in there that you really should pay attention to how you're buying. And, you've got your reputation and relationships to kind of focus on when it comes to that.
Yep.
And part of that is being there on site and touring properties, and when you tour a property, to give feedback, whether it's positive or negative. And you don't want to go dark, right? That's right. Brokers are trying to to sell and position the best that they can a property, you deserve or they deserve for you to share your feedback.
That's right.
And sometimes that might be even a verbal offer, or maybe just getting some pricing guidance and decide whether or not to put in a formal offer based on where your underwriting is coming in and what you're hearing from the broker. Having that dialogue is really key.
Right. Yeah. Really well said, Tony. Like, that feedback thing is so key. I was in Columbus last week. We toured a few different properties that we were thinking about. One was a no for us. It was a very clear no for some easy, obvious reasons, like limitless CapEx. Like, it needed everything internally and externally. And it was just a heavier lift than what we were interested in. And, the broker met me there and we toured, and I called him a few hours later and it said, we're not going to be players on this one. And here's why. And he thanked me, because that it helps him to know what buyers are thinking, amongst other things, because it informs their conversations with the sellers, right? If they're getting really specific feedback from buyers, they can go back to the sellers and say, okay, so here's what we're up against. We got this, this, and this that keep coming up. And I think we need to drop our price by X amount because of those reasons, right? And it just gives them ammunition and information to work with. So Bo's got some, go get that book, guys. I don't have any affiliation with Bo, but I've got 20 copies of it at my office that I'm going to send out to podcast guests that have been on the show. It's fantastic. Multifamily Investors Who Dominate by Bo Beery, which is Beery, not Berry, Beery. And it's on Amazon. So, and since he's friends of both of us, Tony, I figured it's okay to give him a shout out.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Bo's got some great YouTube videos too. Very entertaining.
That's right. Yeah, totally. I'm glad you brought that up. Cool. So, talk to me a little bit about acquisitions. As far as you mentioned on that first one, you underwrote 75 deals before you got that first one. What's your deal flow like now, especially now that we're into kind of a shifting market? And then I want to talk to you a little bit about underwriting those deals too. But have you noticed any changes in deal flow recently?
Yes, I have actually, and it's a little contrary to what you might be hearing from others. I've heard a lot of people say, hey, things are drying up. I'm not seeing deal flow like I used to. Obviously with inflation and interest rates and all these things that are changing the dynamics.
Right.
For me, I've seen more deal flow, and maybe, to qualify what deal flow means for me, I'm less focused directly on the acquisitions. I'm typically brought in as like a co-GP, co-general partner, and somebody to be an active member on the team to fill a role.
Yep.
And I like it that way because I don't focus on my, mailers and, direct seller campaigns. And, it's just not the part of the business I'm focusing on. My focus is a little bit more on working with investors and attracting capital and education and that sort of thing. And so that's typically where I get brought into a deal. I can do all the operations, the asset management, that sort of thing, but I'd rather not. And I make that pretty vocal that that's not really my passion.
Okay.
So usually partners who do really enjoy the asset management and are looking for somebody with my skill set, they'll come in and approach me to participate in their deal. And I'm seeing a ton of that right now. Okay.
Are you, do you mind describing kind of what your superpower is as far as what you bring to a team as a co-GP? What kind of roles and responsibilities do you perform?
Yeah, I mean, I use that term a couple of times, attract capital,
yep,
rather than raise capital.
I like it.
And while that sounds warm and fuzzy, it really has a different meaning, because raising capital is a transaction. It's something you're doing right now for a particular reason.
Yep.
Attracting capital says you're in it for the long game, and you're thinking ahead, and you're less focused on, oh man, I gotta raise, another $1 million for this deal that's right in front of me, and think a little bit longer term and say, if that investor that I'm working with today is not ready to invest in this deal today, that's okay, because I'm educating him or her, and they might be an investor of mine for years and years to come. And so it's that cultivation and just, kind of farming aspect that I really enjoy. And then you start kind of looking at, so what does that really mean? And some of it is like what we're doing here today, is creating some awareness. People can find me, they can learn more about me. Maybe they attend my meetup. There's just a variety of things that somebody could do to interact with me and ultimately build a relationship for the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just to your point, Tony, and for listeners, like, long game relationships, guys. Like, in fact, I would recommend, when you're building your investor list and attracting capital, that you have a deal. I think I've personally found that it's easier to raise capital with a deal in hand, and it can be a live deal or it can be a sample deal. Like another syndicators. If you're starting out, like, go to a syndicator that you love and respect and want to work with, and say, hey, can I borrow an offering memorandum from one of your deals, one of your past deals that you closed, and go take that to investors and show it to them and say, this is kind of what I'm working on right here. And if I brought you something like this in the future, is it something you might be interested in? That's no pressure. No, there's no urgency there. And it can work real well to getting that relationship started. And you're already pointing to, like, we're going to have a relationship here, and I'm going to be able to bring you opportunities that might really benefit you, might really interest you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great tip. In fact, I did something very similar on my first syndication. It wasn't a deal that I borrowed per se, but it was a deal that I had considered moving forward with. We ultimately didn't, but we still went through the underwriting process and, just kind of put together a bit of a mini OM on it so that I could share it with investors and do exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's leveraging other people's experience and expertise and like, again, team sport. Like, this is a partner. Everything you need is in a partner. Take inventory of the resources that you have, and then take inventory of what you need and start manifesting that in partnerships, because they're out there. And there's people like Tony that are ready to go to work and are good at what they do. And in our case, we're really good at finding deals and getting deals done. We've worked with co-GP like you, Tony, and it's a good fit and works really well. So, all the gaps can be filled in partnerships, including your marketing. So I'll just real quick go through, we have a credibility kit, a company profile brochure, basically that has our portfolio, has our team, has our strategy on it. And when we started out, we wanted to have one of those, but we didn't have we didn't have any credibility as far as like a portfolio and a track record. So we had Corey Peterson, the big kahuna out of Phoenix, who we were in a coaching mastermind with. Basically, he was willing to be on our board of advisors on our credibility kit, and we used his portfolio as the company portfolio, because he's a partner, and that worked really well. It was a conversation changer when we went out and met brokers for the first time. So, little sub tip there, guys: do a credibility kit and leverage a partner's experience. No matter where you are in your trajectory, you can do these things. So, do you guys have a company profile kit, Tony? I'm sure you do.
We do, and I call it a credibility kit, just like you described. Corey's as well, and lots of great nuggets that he shared, and so I have kind of a one-pager sort of executive summary one that has a particular audience, but then I have one that's a little more thorough that describes kind of like your buy box. your past deals, your roles, that sort of thing, so that if somebody truly wants to see the full picture of my business and the roles that I played in there, that they can get the whole detail.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I like it. I like the idea of having two. That's really, that's kind of next level for us. So,
technically, I have three because there's one more that's a little more detailed, which actually is a case study. So if somebody really wants to get into the detail, you can share the case study.
Is that a case study of a deal or a case study of an investor?
It's a case study of a deal.
Okay. Nice. Okay, cool. Well, shifting gears a little bit, like, what's the future hold for you guys? Like, let me just, before we get into that, let me ask you a little bit about your structure, your team. Are you kind of solo and just team up with different syndicators? How does that work?
Yep. So right now, and just kind of where I'm at, it's me, but and that's because I don't have a company with partners that are my business partners. I have partners that are part of my deals. And right now I'd like to say I'm dating. I'm not married to partners. Right. And I think that, partnerships are super important. In a deal, you're still with somebody for potentially 5 years, kind of a long time. In a business, it could be decades.
Right.
And so you really want to know who you're doing business with. So for now, I'm still kind of, exploring the right fit.
Yeah.
And I've done multiple deals with certain partners, which kind of starts making me think, hey, these potentially could be true business partners in my company.
Yeah, I love that approach. And I've often said, people ask about our team, and I have two partners. But the one partner I've been working with since 1999. So we know each other intimately in many nuanced ways. And the other partner just was a great fit for our team and for our culture. And, but I highly recommend doing what Tony's doing, go do individual deals with partners, because you're going to need them. Like, you have to do deals with these partners and date. Like, just see how it goes, and let those long-term partnerships kind of organically evolve through the business activity that you're doing. And to me, like, there's nothing worse than partnering with the wrong person. And I probably all of us have some experience with that. And it's something you got to like deal with and clean up and part ways with them and all that stuff. It kind of is ugly. It can be ugly sometimes. And one of my mentors, Tim Bratz, went through a hellacious experience with that. And he's built a team around him that are essentially his employees, I guess you'd say. They all have very specific roles, and it's kind of a setup. Like, he's the man, and his partners, I think technically they're partners, but they're really functionally employees and perform certain roles. Have you ever worked with an assistant or a VA? Do you have anything like that supporting you?
So I should do it more. I experimented a little bit with a VA, more kind of project based and less about being like my employee.
Yeah.
And it was kind of mediocre results. We got through it pretty quick, but the quality wasn't exactly what I expected. And not to say I've given up on that approach at all. I fully believe in the who not how approach.
Yeah.
But for now, I haven't really come up with all the various things that I would delegate to a VA.
Yeah.
But it's coming. It's inevitable.
Yeah. My feeling on that, Tony, is that it's never going to feel like the perfect time, kind of like getting married and having kids. Like, it might be something like we basically knew we needed a VA, but we didn't really feel like we had a full-time position for them to do all we just didn't have enough tasks, but we made ourselves do it anyway. And we're in the process of, he's been with us for a better part of 2 months now, and he's a great guy and a hard worker. And we're in the process of kind of figuring out exactly, what all he's doing, and we're finding stuff. But, and anyway, it's for whatever that's worth. I think at the end of the day, like you do hear people all the time say, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. I'm so much more productive now. They're so great. Like, people really get a lot out of having an assistant, whether it's in person or a VA, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, no, totally. I've heard the same thing. And, like I said, I've experimented. I just have to, kind of let go a little bit and trust and go for it.
Yeah. You're as close to a solopreneur in this space as I've talked to in a while. And that's cool. Like, and the cool thing is you've got these relationships with sponsors now that are really great, and that are, the people that are approaching you on multiple deals. And it sounds like you've done real well with your investor base. And do you have I'm sure you do. You have a CRM, landing page, click magnet, all that stuff integrated. Is that how you get investors?
So it is one of my goals for this year to get better at all of that, and systems and processes, marketing, CRM, that sort of thing.
Yep.
I guess it was late last year I did move everything off of my antiquated Excel into a true CRM system. So now I have, contact database, and I have campaigns and, all that good stuff. I've got it integrated in my website. I wouldn't go so far as to say I've got the whole, lead magnet approach set up.
Yep.
That's a growth opportunity for me. I've got to get better at that. And I still got 6 months in the year, maybe 5, looking at the calendar.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
Plenty of time. Have you ever heard of, I don't have any affiliations, so I'm just giving them a shout out, but have you heard of Good Egg Investments, Tony?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's two women. I think they're in Colorado or Idaho, somewhere out west. And they do basically build your entire system for you. Is their program is, and they train you how to use it. So it's like turnkey plus like expertise on how to use it all. And it's the CRM, the click magnet, the lead funnel, the automated emails, your onboarding, all that stuff is done. And I honestly, I really, really wish that we had gone that route when we started raising capital, because you're either doing it with them on the fast track and you're not missing any stuff falling through the cracks, or you're reinventing the wheel and you're kind of doing it yourself. And you need all that stuff ultimately, in my opinion. So it's not cheap. What they do is, it costs money, but, anyway, something to maybe consider for listeners, like, if you want to really jump into raising capital and spending your time on the stuff that really makes a difference and moves the needle and attracts investors, then consider that you don't need to be designing a website for 2 months, right? Yeah. So
that's right.
Yeah. So, well, Tony, we're running up against time here, and this has been a fantastic conversation. I've totally enjoyed it. Just to kind of wrap things up, most of the listeners here are working on their first deal, maybe have done their first deal and are looking to scale up. What considering everything that's going on in the market right now and everything else, what kind of words of wisdom might you have for a listener like that?
Yeah, I think, there's always opportunity, no matter what the dynamics are in the marketplace, to be working on your credibility, to be sharing with everybody what you're working on and what you want to be working on, and, keep shaping your superpower, and maybe even doing some self-inspection to determine what is that superpower? What do you really want to do? What are you good at?
Yep.
Typically, those are going to be the same thing, because you're going to be passionate about something that you're really interested in doing, and you're going to end up spending the most time on it and get really good at it. So I would start there. And, I think partnering, as we said, is a phenomenal way to get into more deals. So if you're having trouble finding deals, if you're finding opportunities that don't pencil out on your underwriting, just keep networking with more and more people, finding partners who are finding those deals that are penciling out, but maybe are stumbling with trying to put the team together. And it's a great marriage if you come in with your superpower and they come in with a deal.
Yeah. Dude, you just hit on a couple of my favorite things. Number one is like, know yourself. Like, I think this is just the key in life in general is knowing yourself as well as you can, and keep doing that work that allows you to know yourself better and better. Cause the more you know yourself, and in this case, the more you know, like Tony said, your superpowers, which are your natural, like you're probably wired for activity in this space that comes a lot more naturally than other parts of it. You know, throw me behind like like as far as accounting goes, or investor like returns, like dealing with the logistics of behind the scene. Like, dude, you'll kill me with that stuff. Like I literally would wither and die, probably die off than if I had to deal with that stuff. And luckily my partner is really great with it, and he's a workhorse, and he wants to see what there is to do and go do it. That's his superpower. Mine is like being captain of the ship of this thing, and doing stuff like this and building relationships with people like you. And so I think that's really well said. And then, just again, this is a team sport, and you need to know your superpowers so you can take them to other people, other partners, potential partners, and, make it happen with them. So that's really good stuff, Tony. Excellent job. I really appreciate you being on the show. If listeners want to reach out to you and learn more about you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, they can always reach me by email, and that's Tony, Tony, at Novo, Novo, multifamilygroup.com. They can also go straight to my website, learn more about us and myself, subscribe to our database, and that's novomultifamilygroup.com.
Yeah. And if you're a listener, like you want to be on these databases, guys, you want to be getting emails with opportunities, if nothing else, just so you can see what's going on. And, but knowing people like this, your network is your net worth, right? And knowing people like Tony and me, quite frankly, like that's your network, right? That's your opportunity. I say it all the time. Go to our website and book a consultation with me. No strings attached, no obligation. Like that's a chance for you to level up and like rub elbows with somebody that's doing stuff in the space. And I'm not the most experienced syndicator in the world, but I'm also like more than willing and happy to talk to you guys. And I'm sure, Tony, that you are too. And we're here on this show because we want to help, right? We want to inspire, educate, and everything else. So, Tony,
absolutely.
Thanks a ton, man. This was awesome. I can't wait to go back and listen to it again. Really appreciate all your wisdom and insight and experience. And I wish you all the best. Let's stay in touch and see if we can't work together on a deal.
Sounds great, Tate. And thank you again for making time. It's been a great show.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Listeners, Thank you for listening to another episode of the Apartment Gurus. We will see you on the next one, everybody. Take care.
This has been the Apartment Gurus with Tate Siemer. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. To contact Tate, go to www.investwithgreenlight.com for access to his investor portal and Calendly link. He loves to hear from you and thanks you for being a valued listener. Just a reminder that you are the guru. See you on the next episode of the Apartment Gurus.